I was working my night shift at the hospital when an old man grabbed my arm in the hallway and burst into tears. He said I looked exactly like someone he knew from long ago. What he told me about my grandfather's secret changed everything I thought I knew about my family. My name is Marcus Chen, and 6 months ago I thought I understood my life completely. I was a night janitor at Memorial Hospital, mopping floors and emptying trash bins. But that wasn't always my job. I'm 38 years old. Just last year, I worked as a teacher at Lincoln Elementary School. I loved my job, loved my students, loved coming home to my wife Sandra and our son Tommy. Then everything fell apart. Sandra said she needed space. The space turned into separation papers. Within 3 months, I moved into a tiny studio apartment. Within 6 months, I lost my teaching job because of budget cuts. Suddenly, I was cleaning hospitals at night for minimum wage. Life can knock you down fast when you stop paying attention. This story isn't about my failed marriage though. It's about what happened on November 8th when I was cleaning the 4th floor hallway. An elderly man in a hospital gown stepped out of his room and stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. His name was William Chen. No relation to me, or so I thought. He was 87 years old with white hair and shaking hands. When he looked at my face, tears started falling down his cheeks. "You're Henry's grandson," he whispered. "You have to be." Henry was my grandfather's name. He died when I was 10 years old. This complete stranger, this sick old man in a hospital, was crying just from seeing my face. Not because I did anything special. Just because I reminded him of someone from his past. My grandfather, Henry Chen, had been gone for 28 years. He never talked much about his life before I was born. He worked at a factory making car parts. He lived in a small house with a garden. He taught me how to ride a bike and how to be kind to people. That's all I knew about him. What happened next showed me why my family always struggled with money. It explained why grandfather Henry worked until he was 75 years old and still couldn't afford to retire. It explained why he never took vacations or bought new clothes. William Chen had been trying to find my family for 65 years. He hired people to search. He checked phone books and records. He looked everywhere money could take him. He wanted to repay something my grandfather did for him in 1960. Something that saved his life. Something grandfather never wanted credit for. That November night started like every other shift. My alarm clock buzzed at 8 p.m. in my small apartment. I got dressed in my janitor uniform. I ate leftover rice from the night before because I couldn't afford fresh groceries yet. I took the bus to Memorial Hospital because my car had broken down last month and I couldn't fix it. The uniform always smelled like cleaning chemicals no matter how many times I washed it. My son Tommy had called earlier asking if I could come to his soccer game on Saturday. I had to say no because I work weekends now. The first 4 hours of my shift were normal. I mopped the emergency room. I cleaned 3 bathrooms. I emptied garbage cans from patient rooms. Then I reached the 4th floor where the older patients stay. This floor was always quiet at night. Most patients were sleeping. The nurses whispered when they talked. The lights were dimmed to help people rest. I pushed my cleaning cart down the hallway, checking my list of rooms that needed attention. Room 412 was next. But before I could knock, the door opened. An old man stood there in a blue hospital gown. His legs looked weak. His hands grabbed the doorframe for support. But his eyes were sharp and clear. They locked onto my face immediately. He gasped like someone had punched him in the stomach. The color left his face completely. "Henry," he whispered. "No, that's impossible. You'd be dead by now." I stepped back, confused. "Sir, my name is Marcus. Are you okay? Do you need a nurse?" His voice came out shaky. "You look just like him." Exactly like Henry Chen. The same face, the same eyes, even the way you tilt your head when you're confused. "Are you his grandson?" I nodded slowly. Henry Chen was my grandfather. He passed away a long time ago. The old man started crying right there in the hallway. Not quiet tears, but deep sobs that shook his whole body. A nurse came running over, worried he was having some kind of attack. But he waved her away. "I'm fine. I just found him." After 65 years, I finally found Henry's family. I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know this man. I'd never heard his name before. But he knew things about my grandfather that even I didn't know. Things about a fire in 1960. Things about courage and sacrifice. Things that would change how I saw my entire life. Right then, I was just Marcus Chen, night janitor, trying to finish my shift. Then William started talking and nothing was ever the same. Starting over after losing everything feels impossible. 6 months ago, I went from being a third-grade teacher to cleaning hospital floors at night. The divorce took my family. The budget cuts took my career. Even my confidence disappeared. Sandra got custody of Tommy. I see him every other weekend in my tiny apartment that barely has room for his air mattress. Going from a comfortable middle-class life to barely surviving happened so fast. One day I was teaching kids about science and math. The next day I was wearing a janitor uniform and learning how to operate an industrial floor buffer. The lawyers made everything worse. Sandra got the house because Tommy needed stability. She got support payments because she worked part-time at a bookstore. I got the joy of paying for everything while living in a place so small I could barely turn around. My uncle Lee gave me this apartment out of kindness. He owns a small restaurant and lives upstairs with his wife and 3 kids. Just until you get back on your feet, he said. But both of us knew I was drowning. The school district eliminated my position right after my divorce was finalized. They called it budget restructuring. I knew better. Nobody wants a teacher who's falling apart inside. Every night, I pushed my cleaning cart through hospital hallways thinking about what Grandfather Henry would say if he saw me now. He raised me after my mom died when I was 8 years old. Mom's name was Lisa. She got very sick very fast. Cancer took her in 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. My dad couldn't handle being a single parent, so he left. Just disappeared one day. Grandfather Henry showed up at our house and packed my clothes. "You're coming with me," he said. "Family takes care of family." He raised me in his small house on Maple Street. The roof leaked when it rained. The heater barely worked in winter. But there was always food to eat and someone who loved me. He worked at the automotive factory for 40 years without missing a single day. Chun family never quits, he used to tell me while we worked in his garden. We keep going no matter what. He lived those words every day. Henry Chun worked until arthritis twisted his fingers so badly he couldn't hold tools anymore. He never complained about the pain in his back or the cough that never went away. He died when I was 22, right after I finished college. The first person in our family to get a degree. He was so proud. He left me nothing but some old photographs and a medal from some community service award. I didn't even know what the award was for. He never talked about it. Grandfather didn't like talking about himself at all. If you asked about his life, he'd change the subject. The past is the past, he'd say. What matters is today. Even when he had a few beers with Uncle Lee, he stayed quiet about his younger years. Some things don't need discussing, he'd mutter, staring at nothing. Heroes don't want attention. They just want to live their lives. I never understood what he meant by that. Heroes seemed like movie characters, not real people. Certainly not my grandfather who fixed cars and grew tomatoes. The morning shift that changed everything started normally. I had to clean 30 rooms before my shift ended at 6 a.m. Most were in the East Wing where elderly patients stayed for long-term care. Each room got checked off on my clipboard. The hospital tracked everything. Every minute, every room, every supply used. I used to hate the wealthy West Wing where private rooms cost more per night than my monthly rent. Seeing how rich people got treated differently made me angry. But that night I had no choice. The schedule put me on the 4th floor, West Wing. Room 412 was on my list. Patient name, William Chun. The name meant nothing to me. Just another person I'd never meet. I grabbed my mop and bucket and headed down the quiet hallway. The November night was cold outside. I could see frost forming on the windows. My uniform was too thin for the temperature. The hospital kept it cold to save money on electricity. Another day in paradise, I whispered to nobody. Pushing my cart past rooms where people slept or watched TV. Past nurses who barely noticed I existed. Invisible, that's what janitors are. We clean up messes and disappear. Room 412's door was closed. I knocked softly to see if the patient was awake. Sometimes they wanted company. Sometimes they wanted to be left alone. Before I could knock twice, the door swung open. William Chun stood there looking at me like I was a miracle. His whole body went stiff. His mouth opened but no sound came out. Then the tears started. I thought maybe he was confused from medication. Old people in hospitals sometimes get mixed up. "Sir, I'm just here to clean your room. Are you okay?" But he wasn't confused at all. "You're Henry's grandson," he said with complete certainty. I'd know that face anywhere. Henry Chun saved my life 65 years ago, and I've been searching for him ever since. I almost dropped my mop. How did this stranger know my grandfather's name? How did he recognize me from one look? You knew grandfather Henry? I asked, my voice shaking.
Knew him?
Young man, I owe him everything. December 12, 1960. The apartment fire on Harrison Street. Your grandfather ran into a burning building to save me. The hallway suddenly felt too small.
Too hot.
Nobody had ever told me this story. Grandfather's community service medal sat in a box under my bed. I thought he got it for volunteering at a food bank or something simple. Not for running into fires. Mr. Chun, I think you might be mistaken. My grandfather worked at a factory. He did, William said, wiping his eyes. But before that, before he hurt his back, he was the bravest man I ever met.
Come inside. Please.
I need to tell you what he did. What he gave up because of me. My supervisor would be angry if I stopped working.
We had quotas to meet.
But something in William's voice told me this mattered more than any floor that needed mopping. I could get fired. William smiled through his tears. I'll call the hospital administrator. Tell them you're helping a patient with an emergency. I donate a lot of money to this hospital. They'll listen to me. You donate to the hospital? I've been donating for 60 years. Trying to do good in the world the way your grandfather taught me. Trying to pay forward what I could never pay back. He'd been searching for my family his whole life. Buying property records, hiring investigators, checking every Chun in the phone book. Always hoping to find Henry's family and finally say thank you. My phone buzzed with a reminder about my cleaning schedule.
15 more rooms before dawn.
The algorithm didn't care about destiny or family secrets.
Give me 10 minutes, I said.
I followed William into his private room. It was nicer than my apartment. Big windows, comfortable chairs, even fresh flowers on the table. But William didn't seem to notice any of it. He walked slowly to his bed and sat down carefully. You probably wonder why I'm here, he said.
Heart problems.
The doctors say I might have a month left.
Maybe less.
When I saw your name tag tonight, Marcus Chen, I thought maybe God was giving me one last chance. Last chance for what? To keep a promise I made 65 years ago. To explain why your grandfather never had the life he deserved. William pulled out an old wallet from his bedside table. Inside was a photograph, yellowed and cracked. It showed a young Asian man in work clothes, smiling at the camera. That's your grandfather at 25 years old. Took this picture a week before the fire. He worked at my father's factory. Good worker, always on time, never complained. I was 22, fresh out of college, full of stupid ideas. My father owned Chun Manufacturing. No relation to your family, just the same last name. I thought I was special because my family had money. Your grandfather showed me what actually makes someone special. What happened in the fire? William's hands shook as he put the photograph away. It was winter, December 12, 1960. I lived in an apartment building on Harrison Street. Old building, 5 stories, wooden frame. A space heater caught fire in the apartment below mine. By the time I smelled smoke, the hallway was already burning. I opened my door and saw flames everywhere. I couldn't get to the stairs. I ran back inside trapped. Your grandfather was walking home from his factory shift. He saw the smoke, saw people screaming from windows. Everyone else was waiting for firefighters. Henry Chun ran inside.
He just ran in?
Without thinking twice. I found out later he kicked down 3 doors looking for people. Found an old woman on the 2nd floor and carried her out. Went back in for a mother and her baby on the 3rd floor. Then he came for me on the 4th floor. The smoke was so thick I couldn't breathe. I was coughing so hard I thought my lungs would explode. Then I heard someone shouting my name. Your grandfather somehow knew who I was from the factory. He threw his jacket over my head and dragged me through the burning hallway. Pieces of ceiling were falling around us. The heat was so intense our skin blistered.
But he didn't stop.
When we got outside, I collapsed on the sidewalk. I could finally breathe again. I looked up and saw your grandfather's hands. They were burned badly. Black and red and blistered. His clothes were smoking. His face was covered in soot. But he just smiled at me and said, "You're okay now. That's what matters." Then he walked away before the ambulances arrived. Just disappeared into the crowd. I never even got to thank him. The next day I went to the factory to find him.
He wasn't there.
They told me Henry Chun had quit. Just walked in that morning, said he was done, and left.
Nobody knew where he went.
Why would he quit? William stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars. Because saving people from that fire hurt him badly. His hands never healed right. He couldn't do factory work anymore with damaged hands. But instead of accepting help, instead of letting my family reward him, he vanished. My father wanted to give him money, set him up with a new job, anything. We owed him our son's life. But Henry Chun didn't want rewards. He just wanted to disappear and start over somewhere else. My grandfather worked with damaged hands for 40 more years and never said a word about it. William turned to face me, fresh tears on his cheeks. I hired investigators in 1965, 1970, 1980, every decade after. The internet gave me hope. Social media gave me more hope. But Henry Chun was a common name, and I didn't have enough information. It was like searching for one specific fish in the ocean. Then tonight, I saw your name tag, and I knew. I just knew. He walked to his closet and pulled out a metal box. The kind that holds important papers. Inside were documents, yellowed with age but carefully preserved. My father set up a fund in 1961. Money for your grandfather or his family. It's been sitting in a bank for 64 years, waiting.
What kind of fund?
William handed me a paper from the top of the stack.
Read it.
The document was from Harrison Bank and Trust, dated January 20, 1961. I read the words, but they didn't make sense at first. This account established in honor of Henry Chen's heroic actions shall remain untouched until claimed by Henry Chun or his direct descendants. Initial deposit, $8,000. My throat went dry. $8,000 in 1961? With guaranteed interest of 7% annually, compound interest, never touched. William's voice was gentle, like he was talking to a scared child. Do you understand what that means after 64 years? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. The calculator app opened slowly. $8,000. 7% interest.
64 years.
The number that appeared didn't look real.
It looked like a mistake.
$1.8 million, I whispered. $1,847,000 and some change, William corrected. Your grandfather walked away from the reward my father offered. He was too proud to accept what he called charity. But this wasn't charity. This was a debt. A debt my family has been trying to pay for 6 decades. I can't take this. This isn't real. You don't even know if I'm really his grandson. I could be lying. William laughed softly. Look at that mirror on the wall. I turned and saw my reflection in a small mirror hanging by the window. For the first time, I really looked at my face.
The strong jaw. The deep eyes.
The way my nose bent slightly to the left. It was Grandfather Henry's face staring back at me. Besides, William continued, pulling out more papers, I already had my lawyers check everything yesterday when I saw your name on the hospital staff list. Your birth certificate, your mother Lisa's death certificate, your grandfather Henry's records.
It's all verified.
You are the legal heir to this fund.
This can't be happening.
Things like this don't happen to people like me.
People like you?
William's voice got firm. You mean good people who've had bad luck? Working people who've struggled because your grandfather was too proud to accept help? That's exactly who deserves this. My father also created a scholarship fund in 1961.
For Henry Chen's descendants.
That fund has been running for 64 years, helping other families because we couldn't find yours. But there's still $300,000 left in it with your name on it.
How much total?
I couldn't breathe properly.
The room felt too small.
$2.1 million, William said simply. Plus some investments my father made in your grandfather's name.
Real estate, stocks, bonds.
Things that grew over time. Altogether, you're looking at about $2.8 million. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. I sat down in the chair before I fell down. $2.8 million. I made $22,000 a year mopping hospital floors. This was more than 100 years of work. It was Tommy's future paid for. It was Sandra never being able to hold money over my head again. It was freedom from fear. But more than that, it was proof that Grandfather Henry had been a hero. A real hero, not a movie character. Why did you keep looking all these years?
I asked.
You could have just kept the money. Nobody would have known. William sat on his bed, looking very tired suddenly. Let me show you something. He reached for his wallet again and pulled out another photograph. This one was in color, more recent. It showed a big family gathered together. Dozens of people, all smiling. This is my family. My wife Joan, who passed 3 years ago.
My 3 sons. My daughter. 9 grandchildren.
4 great-grandchildren, with 2 more on the way.
He placed the photo in my hands. They all looked happy.
The kind of happiness that comes from love, not money. None of them would exist if your grandfather had left me in that fire. Every birthday, every holiday, every graduation, every wedding. Every single moment of joy and love. I owe all of it to Henry Chun. The money sitting in that bank account, that's nothing compared to what he gave me. But it's all I can give back. 3 hours later, I sat in my car outside Memorial Hospital holding papers that proved $2.8 million was mine. William had called his lawyers right there in his hospital room. They arrived within 2 hours with everything ready to sign.
The money was real. The accounts were real.
Everything would be transferred within 1 week. I'd signed papers until my hand cramped. Each signature made it more real and more impossible to believe. William had walked me to the door when I left, moving slowly but with determination. Your grandfather gave me 65 more years of life, he said, gripping my shoulder with surprising strength for a sick man. I built a successful business. I had 4 children, 9 grandchildren. None of that happens without Henry Chun. This money isn't a gift, Marcus. It's a debt finally being paid. Why didn't grandfather ever tell us about this?
About you? About any of it?
That was Henry. William smiled sadly. He never saw himself as a hero. To him, he was just doing what needed to be done. I tried to thank him once after the fire. Tracked him down 6 months later to some small town. Tried to explain what the money meant. You know what he said? He said, "You living your life is thanks enough. Go home and forget about me." Then he walked away from $8,000 like it was pocket change. That night I called Uncle Lee and told him everything. He thought I was joking at first. Then he thought someone was scamming me. When I sent him photos of the legal documents, he didn't say anything for a long time. Dad never mentioned any of this, Uncle Lee finally said, and I could hear him crying. We grew up with nothing, Marcus. Mom cleaned houses for money after Dad hurt his hands. We ate the same food every day because it was cheap. He could have claimed that money anytime.
He was too proud. No, Marcus.
He was teaching us something important. You don't do good things because you want rewards. You do them because they're right. But I wish he'd been a little less proud and a little more practical. Mom died still working, still worried about paying rent. 3 weeks later, I stood in my new office at Chun Community Center, a building I bought with part of the trust money. The rest went into college funds for Tommy and Uncle Lee's 3 kids. I hired 8 employees in the first month, all people who needed work but couldn't find it. On my desk, I kept Grandfather Henry's Community Service Medal in a frame. Finally understanding why he never talked about it. Sandra called when she heard about my money. Suddenly, she wanted to talk about getting back together. I told her the only thing we needed to discuss was Tommy's future, which was now fully secured through college and beyond. The silence on her end felt like victory. But the real change wasn't the money. It was understanding who I came from. Every morning when I walked into my community center, I thought about a 25-year-old man running into a burning building because people needed help. Not thinking about rewards or recognition. Just doing what was right even when it cost him everything. That was my blood. My heritage. My legacy. 6 months after that November night, William Chun passed away peacefully in his sleep. His son Michael called to tell me and to pass along his father's final message. Tell Marcus I finally kept my promise to Henry. Tell him the debt is paid and I can rest now. At William's funeral, hundreds of people came to honor a man who'd built a successful business, who'd donated millions to charity, who'd spent 65 years trying to repay a debt he felt in his heart. But I knew the truth. The debt was never really his to pay. My grandfather had given freely, without asking for anything, without even staying around to be thanked. Memorial Hospital still needs janitors working night shifts. Sometimes I see them pushing their cleaning carts down the hallways, and I remember the night a patient's door opened and changed everything. Not because of money, though money helps. But because it showed me who my grandfather really was. And in seeing him clearly for the first time, I could see who I needed to become. Chun family never quits. We might mop floors for a while. We might struggle and fall and lose everything. But we carry something more important than money. We carry the legacy of those who came before us, even when we don't know what they did. My grandfather carried William out of a burning building 65 years ago. William carried his gratitude for the rest of his life. Now I carry their story forward and the responsibility to live up to both examples. Some gifts are too valuable to measure in dollars. But sometimes money is the only language left to say thank you. Sometimes a debt takes 65 years to pay because the person who deserves it won't accept it. And sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is run into a fire without thinking about what comes after. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment about a time someone's kindness changed your life in ways you didn't expect. And don't forget to subscribe to Boss of Stories for more incredible true stories that remind us what humanity is capable of when we choose courage over comfort. Thank you for listening, and remember, heroes don't do heroic things for rewards. They do them because someone needs help, and they happen to be there. That's the kind of person my grandfather was. That's the kind of person I'm trying to become. The money will help my family. But the lesson, the example, the understanding of where I come from. That's the real inheritance. When I visit Grandfather Henry's grave now, I bring fresh flowers every week. I tell him about the community center. About the families we're helping. About Tommy's college fund and Uncle Lee's kids' scholarships. About William Chun who never stopped looking. I wish you'd told us, I say to the gravestone. I wish you'd let someone say thank you while you were alive. But I understand why he didn't. Heroes don't think they're heroes. They think they're just regular people who did what anyone would do. Except most people wouldn't do it. Most people wouldn't run into fires or give up their careers to help strangers. Grandfather did, and he never wanted credit. The community center serves 200 families now. We help with food, job training, housing assistance, everything my family needed but never got. Every person we help, I think about Grandfather Henry.
Would he be proud? I hope so.
William's family visits sometimes. Michael brings his kids and grandkids. We share stories about the fire, about the decades of searching, about the moment I walked into room 412 and everything changed. They call me cousin even though we're not related by blood. We're related by something deeper. By a moment of courage 65 years ago that rippled forward through time to create families and futures. Tommy lives with me now, 3 days a week instead of every other weekend. Sandra agreed after seeing how stable my life became. He's 12 years old and asks questions about his great-grandfather constantly. Was he really a hero?
Tommy asked last week. He was, I tell him. The best kind.
The kind who never bragged about it. We look through old photographs together. I show him the community service medal. I tell him about the fire and the burned hands and the pride that kept grandfather from accepting help. That's stupid, Tommy says. He should have taken the money.
Maybe.
But then I wouldn't have learned the most important lesson. Money isn't why we do good things. We do good things because people need help and we can give it. The money that followed was William's choice, his way of saying thank you across decades. But Grandfather Henry didn't save people for money. He saved them because burning buildings had people inside who wanted to live. That's the lesson. That's what I'm teaching Tommy. Not that heroism pays well, but that heroism doesn't care about payment. Last month, a fire started in an apartment building near the community center. I saw the smoke and ran toward it without thinking. Got 3 people out before firefighters arrived. Burned my hands pretty badly doing it. Had to wear bandages for 2 weeks. Uncle Lee asked me why I did it. You could have waited for professionals. I couldn't explain it then, but I understand now.
It's in my blood.
The instinct to help even when it costs you something. Even when it's dangerous. Even when there's no reward waiting. That's what Grandfather Henry gave me. Not money or medals, but an example. A way of being in the world that values people over comfort. The newspapers called me a hero. I told them I wasn't. Heroes don't feel like heroes. They feel like people who did what needed doing. That's what Grandfather Henry told William 65 years ago. That's what I believe now too. The Chun Community Center grows every month. We're opening a second location next year in a different neighborhood. Creating jobs, helping families, giving people the chances my family never had. All because Grandfather Henry ran into a fire and didn't want credit. All because William Chun never stopped looking. All because I delivered a mop and bucket to room 412 on a November night and met Destiny in a hospital gown. Sandra apologized last month. Really apologized, not the fake kind. She said leaving was a mistake. I told her I forgave her, but we couldn't go backward. Some doors close and need to stay closed. But I thanked her too. Because the divorce broke me down low enough to take a night janitor job. Low enough to be pushing a cleaning cart past room 412 at exactly the right moment. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. My teaching job couldn't compare to running a community center. My old life couldn't compare to this new purpose. William Chun taught me something in his final message. Debts of honor take time to pay.
Sometimes decades.
Sometimes generations. But good people don't forget. They carry gratitude like Grandfather Henry carried people from fires. With determination and love and refusal to quit. I keep William's hospital room photograph on my desk. The picture of him and his whole family, all the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who exist because Grandfather Henry didn't walk past a burning building. That's what heroism really means. Not the moment of courage, though that matters. But the ripples that spread out from that moment, touching lives that haven't been born yet, creating futures that wouldn't exist otherwise. Every child in William's family photograph owes their existence to my grandfather. Every family we help at the community center owes their chance to grandfather's example. That's legacy. That's what matters.
Not money, though money helps.
But the choice to help when helping costs you something. The hospital still employs janitors on night shift. Sometimes I visit and talk to them during their breaks.
Tell them to pay attention to the patients.
You never know when someone will recognize your face and change your life. But more importantly, you never know when you'll have a chance to help someone and create ripples that last generations. Grandfather Henry carried William Chun out of a fire. William carried his gratitude for 65 years. Now I carry their story and try to live worthy of both. Some debts take lifetimes to pay. Some heroes never want payment. And sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money. It's understanding where you came from and who you're meant to become. Thank you for watching Boss of Stories. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment about your own family's hidden heroes. And subscribe for more stories that remind us why kindness matters, why courage counts, and why some debts are worth spending a lifetime to repay. Remember, you might be one choice away from changing someone's entire future.
Choose courage. Choose kindness.
Choose to help even when it costs you something. That's what heroes do. That's what Grandfather Henry taught me without ever saying a word about it. Until next time, keep being the person someone else might search 65 years to thank.